Hello, welcome back to Coffee Break Blogging, and we're going to continue on our series to creating a profitable blog-based business online. Now, today we're going to continue on the theme of our blog content that we started in the last episode, and we're going to today talk about how to actually get your reader to go down to the end of your blog post. Now, that's a very important thing, and it's actually more important now than it used to be. So here's the reason why. SEO is changing. Search engine optimization is changing. It used to be a game where primarily we were all worried about putting keywords in there, having keywords in our subheadlines, our headlines, try to get up in the rankings inside of Google and ultimately get lots of traffic, be happy, and brag. But here's the thing, SEO isn't really like that anymore. Those things are still valid. However, they are not the complete picture of SEO. If you put yourself in the perspective of Google these days, all they're trying to do is find the best content and surface it to the top, and so that people feel like they're getting exactly what they want from Google. Now, one of the biggest indicators, in fact, really the only real big indicator of whether people like the piece of content is what's called user engagement. It's whether the user, whether the reader or the surfer, whatever you want to call them, is engaging with the content. And that is actually a huge signal to Google on whether your piece of content is any good. So it's not just about keywords anymore, because we all know that the SEOs were keyword stuffing and doing all this bull crap to try to game Google, and it's just a stupid game, and it doesn't even work very well anymore. It's about user engagement. Now, what are the different things that go into user engagement? Well, it could be whether they share your post on social media. It could be whether they scroll. So that's a really big one. Here's the thing. If they go to your blog post and they immediately bounce off, so you got a high bounce rate, then they're obviously not engaging with that blog post. And Google knows, especially if they're using the Google Chrome web browser or if you've got Google Analytics installed on your site. Google knows, man. They're not dumb. If they click on a Google search result and then they go to your site, even if Google can't track what's happening on your site, but then they immediately back, just hit the back button and go back to Google. If Google sees that they left, sees that they immediately came back, trust me, they can put two and two together. They know if your blog post is just boring the snot out of people and people are bouncing off of it. So getting people down to the end of your blog post, or even just scrolling down a little bit, is not just about getting them to your call to action, getting them to post a comment, or getting them to, click on something that's going to make you money. That's all stuff that we'll talk about with the business model, but it really is about increasing user engagement on that blog post, which is SEO as it stands today. So it's important that we get people to scroll. It's important that they don't just come to the blog post and then bounce back off. So here we go. Let's talk a little bit about how to get them down to the end of the blog post. Now, one thing is length. Length of the blog post matters, but it doesn't. But I'm going to give you some information on this. It doesn't mean it needs to be like something that you just follow religiously, just blindly. So here's the thing. From an SEO perspective, longer blog posts are actually better. Like Google loves getting 2,000 plus word, high quality blog posts. And generally they're going to rank well. But that's if the other things are in place that we're talking about here. Now, the thing is, we can know from personal experience that typically longer blog posts require a lot more effort to read them. And therefore, if it's not structured right, it's going to make more people leave, because they're going to come to the blog post from Google. They're going to see how big it is, and they're going to be like, ah, crap, I don't have time for this. And they're going to back off, and they're just not going to read it. So here's what you could do. It doesn't mean that you have to keep your blog post short. It just means that you've got to structure that blog post in such a way where you can have high quality content of a decent length. I think I saw a study one time that said the ideal blog post length was around 1,600 words. I tend to shoot for about 2,000 words or higher. And I think that's really good for SEO, but you've got to structure it right in order to get them to engage and not make that lazy decision at the beginning and be like, damn, I don't have time for this, and they just want to take off. So one big thing you definitely want to do is have short paragraphs. Paragraphs should not be these big blocks of text like you would do in a college essay or something. Do not do that on a blog. A blog post paragraph is more about controlling their flow through the blog post. It's not only about putting like ideas together or sentences about a common idea together like you were taught in English class. You can violate that rule when it comes to your blog post. It's really more about controlling the flow. Now, excuse me. One of the reasons that hypnotists work, or hypnosis, is because they kind of get you into a pattern that repeats. You know, and the stereotype is that they've got that little necklace and it's just this repeating pattern going back and forth, and the person talks to you in this incessant way. And to some people, that will knock you out. And so, but the thing is about it, it's that repeating pattern. Now, here's the thing. If you vary the pattern, people are less likely to do that. So what can you do with your blog post? You can actually have paragraphs of different lengths. You know, and the thing is, shorter paragraphs are going to be easier to read. A paragraph with just 1 or 2 sentences is going to be easier to read than one that has 5 to 10 sentences in it. You can even have paragraphs that are only 1 word long. You would do that for the purposes of emphasis. So think about paragraphs as a form of flow control. I've talked about this before, but you want to flow your reader through the blog post, but you want it to be approachable, easy to read, and you want to vary the length around a little bit so that they're not going to get that incessant pattern, which kind of puts people to sleep. The other thing is you definitely have to have subheadlines inside of your blog post. Now, these subheadlines are just as important as the top headline, almost. It's really all about getting them to continue to read. Now, here's the thing. People are going to scan the blog post at first. They're not going to read it. They're going to hit the headline. They're going to be like, oh, this looks interesting. And they're going to scroll downward. And then the purpose of that scrolling downward is to decide whether they want to take the time to read it. Now, the big part of what's going to sell them on reading the entire thing is going to be the subheadlines. Now, so the subheadlines have the exact same function as the main headline at the top, and that is to get them to read what's underneath it. So every single subheadline that you put in the blog post should be engaging. It should be such that it makes them want to continue reading, that it pulls them through a storyline through that blog post. It's very important. There's nothing worse than having a blog post which is long, 1,500 to 2,000 words or higher, and there's nothing breaking it up. It's just a big bunch of paragraphs. It's just too hard. They don't know if it's any good. So they need to have those subheadlines. And from an old school SEO perspective, it does help because Google does use those to index. Now, next thing is bullet points. Bullet points, you definitely need to be using them inside of your blog post. And because they break up the monotony of all that paragraph crap all over the place. Bullet points are scannable. As one is scanning through the blog post, they're going to see the bullet points and they're probably going to read them. They're probably going to read the bullet points. Much easier than reading just standard paragraph text. So you need to put in bullet points. And it really doesn't matter whether they're unbulleted or unordered or ordered list. It really doesn't matter. The whole idea is to set that text off visually from the other stuff around it because it's easier to read, easier to scan over and get the main idea. Another thing that you could do, and this is something you'd have to get into the style sheet of your theme, so I'm not going to get into that right now, but you can actually modify your theme so that whenever you have ordered list or unordered list inside your blog post, it will actually format it slightly differently. Make sure that it's indented over. You could even make it bold to make it stand out even more. You could customize the bullet points so that it uses little images of some kind to make that thing stand out, because that's really what it's all about, is to make those things stand out. Now, images are a really important one. And another thing that you can do, by the way, is videos. Videos work really well too, is you can interlace those things throughout the blog post, but not just in a random haphazard way, you know, I'm going to go get some stock photo and throw it in here kind of a deal. You want to think about it in terms of they're scanning through the blog post and they're going to make that read or no read decision. The other thing too about videos is that they increase time on site. And we were just speaking about user engagement. Well, time on the page is a factor that they use to determine engagement. You know, if somebody comes to your blog post and they're there for 30 seconds, they're not nearly as engaged with whether they're there for 5 to 10 minutes. And what is going to get people to really stick around longer? A video, because they might watch it, right? And they're going to be on your site while it happens. So videos are great. And also from a thumbnail perspective, because they haven't hit the play button yet, it still kind of works in the image as an image on that blog post. So it's going to really work well in terms of scannability. Another thing that you can do, and this is a good tactic actually, is to put teasers, or what I like to call open loops, inside the content itself. So a really good place to put that is at the beginning, because the beginning text is going to be the most likely to get read. So what you can do is make a bold promise as to what they're going to get in this blog post, and you can give them a few teasers as to what's coming up. Maybe something they're going to get at the end. And you can put that at the top. Well, what is that more likely to do? It's a lot more likely to get them down to the bottom of it, to be honest with you. So put teasers in your blog post. If you're going to give them something at the end of a blog post, tease it at the top, because it's going to get them a hell of a lot more likely to come down to the bottom. Quite frankly, even if they don't read the entire post and they just scroll down to the bottom of the thing, it's still good. It still helps you in the eyes of Google, because they're a lot more engaged with the blog post at that point, and that can help your SEO. Okay? Now, one little tactic that I can share with you is a plugin, and this is called Scroll Top and Bottom. Very simple plugin, totally free. Just go Google it, Scroll Top and Bottom. Now, what this will do is it will actually put a little icon, like a little arrow, on the bottom of your blog that kind of points downward. And what it will do is it will entice people to scroll down. Very, very simple tactic. Now, where I found this, I heard about this over at Traffic and Conversion when they were talking about this on stage, but he showed the Apple website for the Apple Mac Pro computer. Weird little computer, by the way. It looks like a trash can. It's a funny looking thing. But anyway, if you go to that site, it's a very well-designed site, but you'll see this little arrow there which gets people to want to scroll down. And of course, their page does all this fancy stuff as you scroll down. But it's a very simple tactic, and just having that arrow there is like, oh, I guess I should scroll. That increases user engagement. It's going to get them to scroll down the page, okay? So a simple way to do this, and there are other ways, but it's a simple plugin, just simply called Scroll Top and Bottom. Might want to give it a whirl. Try it out, see what it does on your site. But it's really about increasing user engagement. It's not just about the call to action at the end of the blog post. It is about getting them to engage, because you're sending those signals to Google that your article is worth something, and they're more likely to give you a little better rankings. Are you going to get all the way to the top? Who the hell knows? Because there's a lot of factors that go into this stuff. The keyword stuff all still matters. Incoming links still matter, but social signals matter as well, and engagement. Reducing bounce rate helps. Getting them to scroll down helps. Getting them to post a comment. Getting them to remain on the blog post for a longer period of time. All those things help with user engagement metrics in the eyes of Google. So multiple reasons why you want to get them to the end of the blog post. Hopefully you'll put some of the tactics in this episode to use to get more engagement on your blog post, hence get better search engine rankings. And I will see you in a few days with the next episode of Coffee Break Blogging. Talk to you next time.